Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to the Indoctrination Discussion. My name is Onur Romano, and I am the co-organizer of CFI Victoria branch and branch manager of the CFIC virtual branch and a board member. CFIC is Canada's only national nonprofit with the mission of promoting and educating the public and critical thinking, science, and secularism. We help people make decisions based on evidence, rational thinking, and compassion. In alignment with our mission, we hold events like these to provide an opportunity for subject matter experts, intellects, and free thinkers to engage with you. Most recently, we have moved many of these events online. To minimize background noise, we have put everyone on mute. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand by using the raise hand feature on the bottom part, or you can also use the reactions option feature there as well. I myself will be moderating this event, and I will acknowledge that I've seen your raised hand by writing your name in the chat window. When the opportunity presents itself, you will be unmuted and have the opportunity to ask a question. We rely entirely on donations and memberships to allow us to bring you events such as this. Please visit our website or email me for more information about how to become a member or make a donation. Now, I'd like to introduce you to this evening's speakers. Both of our speakers are members of Center for Inquiry Canada. Dr. Sophie Dulesh is also the branch manager of CFIC Victoria branch. She is a very dear person. She has been like a mother to me for the past couple of years. So please forgive me in advance if it slips out of my mouth and I end up calling her Ma during our talk. CFIC members Sophie Dulesh, PhD, and Gleb Lisikh will start us off with their memories of the religion-like dogmatism and emotional appeal to one's tribe they expected growing up in the USSR, and share insights from their experience. Then we will invite members to share their experiences and ask questions to Gleb and Sophie. And Gleb is also another USSR citizen who used to live in USSR during the Perestroika period, which we will find out more detailed in the following minutes. So welcome, Sophie and Gleb. Can you both hear me now?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello.
Welcome.
So, well, I will say ladies first, and we would like to start with you sharing your experience with us about the indoctrination and dogmatism in USSR. Also, maybe you can start off by explaining us what is Perestroika. And then after you share us your experience, I would like to ask the same question to Gleb, who I think also has more hands-on personal experience geographically on the issue. So yes, we can start now with you, Sophie.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I was asked to share my thought and my experience regarding indoctrination, and I'll try now. I think it is the way to do it, to share with you some of my thought and some of my early experience. The time when I was born and lived in Moscow, Russia. Indoctrination. So indoctrination is something, an action, which has been with humanity since inception, forever. It is very, very simple two-step action In fact, it is humiliating for the humans that it works. It is so simple, so unsophisticated, but it does. Always has and always will. That's how the evolution made us humans. Two-step action. If you want to have indoctrinated a group of people, be it your family, members of your family, or your classmates, or your colleagues, or your the people of the city you live in, or of the country you live in, particularly if you are a ruler, a leader of the country. What you have to do is very simple. Number one step, you have to cut off all real information on the topic. Cut off completely, as much as you can, and completely and forever, not one-time event. And second step is you have to fill the vacuum with your own ideas, with your own lies, with your own confabulations, as much as you can. Keep pumping on and on. Don't ever stop. This second part, in fact, is following the infamous advice and famous quote of Goebbels, who said, well-known, oft-quoted statement, who said, no matter how big is the lie, you want people to believe in. If you repeat it enough times, they will believe you. And if they have no other ways to get informed, all other sources are cut off. And that's what has been done in the Soviet Union from inception up to the point when I left it. What kind of information we could have had if not their intent? That at that time there was no TV, there was no internet, of course. We did have books, magazines, newspapers, radio, and movies. Radio was blocked, movies never purchased. We missed, people in Russia missed all the beauties of Hollywood, all the joys of Hollywood movies. We missed them all. We never seen it because they were never purchased on purpose. And newspapers not allowed in, magazines not allowed in, books not allowed in, and radio blocked. And personal contact. If somebody comes from the West, he will talk, he will tell people, Iron Curtain. Nobody is coming in, nobody is getting out. That's how it was achieved quite successfully. We were completely deprived of any information for decades. And the people paid with their lives for that. I just give you two examples. People who lived in the Western Russia between Polish border and Moscow, people who came under immediate danger at the time of Nazi invasion when the war started for Russia. And all the others as well, but all the others, for all the others, it was not that critical, not that mortal, but for them, among them, Jews, gypsies, cripples, homosexuals, and communist activists, all people who were killed, who knew they would have been, had they known what was going on in Germany. Our neighbor, Nazi Germany, was in full swing, in full bloom already. They had Munich Putsch, they had Crystal Night, they had Long Night, they had extermination of Jews and gypsies and cripples and homosexuals, was full speed forward We knew nothing, nothing at all. People who could have, we felt, we sensed that war is coming, and war is coming from the West, from Germany. And had they known, those people, it was thousands and thousands of them, had they known what waits ahead, many of them might have moved to the eastern part of Russia, which was not occupied, and this way to remove themselves from the harm's way. They did not know. They paid with their life for lack of information. This way it became criminal. And the second example, diabetics. Insulin produced for injections, at that time it was mostly injections, produced in Russia was not purified enough. It had traces of proteins which were not foreign, not needed for the action. But they did not know how to purify it. It was well purified at the West by that time already, but again, we did not know. What happened? If you repeatedly inject yourself with this non-purified insulin, as they had to keep alive, your body, some of people, not all of them, but many, would eventually get allergic to this protein and would react with severe allergic reactions, sometimes with anaphylactoid shock, which kills. So those unfortunate diabetics would die because they did not have access and knowledge of purified insulin. They did not know. Again, lack of information kills. Of course, Soviet authorities could not have cared less. It was well illustrated, the harms of indoctrination and the ways to indoctrinate, the two-step action to get indoctrinated, was very well illustrated in a famous favorite book for children in America, written by Frank Baum, about the land of Oz. If you recall, in one of the books about the land of Oz, one of the books was about an emerald city. The wizard who ruled in this city, who was not a wizard but pretended to be, he wanted people to believe in his magic powers, in his exceptional powers. So he introduced new regulations, new laws. Everybody who lives in this city from the first day to the last day must wear glasses. Everybody who enters the city must put on glasses, which were tinted green colored glasses, and never ever take them off. So that's efficiently cut off information about any other colors. Everything was green. And then next step, he started pumping information, false information, that it's green because it's made of emerald. People, you are the most fortunate ever in our planet. You are the luckiest. Nobody before you lived ever in an emerald city. I built for you city made of emerald. You are so incredibly fortunate. And he repeated it, and people believed him. That's how it worked in Russia as well. We were told, we were cut off all information, and then we were told repeatedly on the meetings, in the newspapers, in the books, in the movies, on the radio, everywhere, repeatedly. People, you are most fortunate of all in the planet, in our planet. You are luckiest because you live in the country which is building socialism. Never had it before, and we are much ahead. They will follow, but much behind. You are the most fortunate, we believe. That's why Kant produced his famous logo, Sapere Audi. Dare to think for yourself. Don't allow others think for you. Do it for yourself. But unfortunately, how many Kants among populations in every country in the world? Not too many, very few. And people didn't follow. Most people didn't follow. And to finish my short presentation, I share with you my personal experience. I think I was 8, grade 2. It was a very big day in our life because we were solemnly admitted on that day to the organization, All Russia Embracing Organization of Pioneers, Young Leninists. It was the first step to become eventually a member of Communist Party, first out of 3. The second step would be at age about 15. It would be admission to the All Russia organization called Komsomol. It is abbreviation of 3 Russian words meaning Communist Union of Youth. Also non-selective or mostly non-selective, at least in Moscow. And the third and final, most important step would be after you reach 20, 25, very selective. Some of the people, but by no means all of them, would be offered to become members, invited to become members, and you better never say no, never express any skepticism, because this way you ruin your career forever. You ruin the career of your husband, of your father, or your family, because you immediately would be labeled suspicious, and that would be the end of everything. You would ruin more simple thing. At that time, to get telephone for personal need, even collective telephone in a communal apartment, usually would take, you would placed in line and waiting list, and it would take 10, 15 years. If you are labeled suspicious, forget about it. So that would be really bad for you. Very selective third step action. Some people would be invited, allowed to become communist member. 2 major points of selection. One is origin. Proletarian origin was the must. If your father happened to be clergy or before revolution owner of some business or some land, you're out. And second criterion, ethnicity. Russians, overwhelmingly Russians were welcome. Ukrainians, Belarusians, Latvians, maybe were okay, not so good, but not so bad either. Germans, Russia had at least 3, maybe more, big German settlements. They were Germans. They were living in Russia for generations. They were as much Germans as Martians, but they were considered Germans. Germans were not good, but occasionally Tatars, Jews, of course, the worst, but occasionally, particularly at wartime, if you showed some heroic action, then yes, you would be admitted, you would be invited. Otherwise, no. That was the criterion for selection. And for the last third step, to become a party member. So that was the top, was considered the top of your career. So back to my personal experience. I was 8 in grade 2, were on the day of admitting to the Pioneer, All Russia Pioneer Young Leninist organization. We were given a leader. She was a girl from grade 10. She was about 17, and we were 8. For us, she was all quite grown up. She came. There was no flowers in the room because flowers were among dozens, hundreds of things which were unavailable. No way to get. So, but she told us about the organization and how important step it was in our life, how proud we should be on that day. And at the end of it, she gave to us, all of us, Pioneer red tie. It is a triangular piece of silky tissue, bright, bright red, to wear over your neck. And before, she said, before we part, I want to ask all of you one question. Imagine you are alone in your room and there is a room invasion. A robber entered your room. There's no adults. You're alone. And he's telling to you, I am going to take all your possessions. They are mine now, and you will never see them again. But I leave you your pioneer tie. Or you have an option. Choose. You can give me your pioneer tie, and I'll leave your possessions with you. I don't take anything else. What do you want? What would you answer, she asked us. Now, one last comment before I tell you what we said. 25 kids of all ways of life, all paths of life. I want you to understand that to lose all possessions or any possession, for us, it was not like here, not at all, not even close. I know you cannot imagine it, but in Russia, there was no income inequality. There was no problem of any income inequality. We were all equally, completely pauperized. We were poor like church mice, all of us. At age 8, we knew all too well what it is to lose your winter coat or your pillow or your plate or your school books. There was no way to get any replacement. It is not like here a child might have said, oh, big deal, my mom buy me news, even better, I will have new clothes, new toys. No way, there was nowhere to get a replacement. Stores were empty shelves. And what are you going to do if you lost your pillow and bed sheets? How am I going to sleep? If I lost my winter coat, how am I going to go to school? If I lost my textbooks, school books could not be purchased. School books were distributed at school on September 1st, and they were the school books which were in use for maybe 10 years or more. We were immediately sternly said, be very, very careful with your school books, because next year, next class will need them. And after that, next year, next class. So please don't draw on them, don't tear them, don't dirty the cover. Be very, very careful. They are needed and needed and needed non-stop. Nobody ever questioned, but the content of the book, school textbook, which was printed 10, 15 years ago, must be outdated. The science in moving forward. No, nobody questioned, never crossed anybody's mind. School books were used for 10 or more years. There was no new prints. There was no way to get any book. So to lose my school books, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to school. We knew it only well, too well. So when we are told, when you are told, I'm going to take all your possessions, it is a it is a huge, huge calamity, trouble. What I'm going to do? And yet, all 25 kids, as one kid, answered, I will tell the robber, I will keep my pioneer tie, take all my possessions. With enthusiasm, we were proud of ourselves, and our new leader was proud of us. That's how it should be in Soviet Union. That's how early and how completely children were indoctrinated by age 8. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Sophie.
Comments
Now,
are welcome later.
Before we get into the questions, Sophie, we will we will hear from Gleb, and then we will go into the Q&A. So yes, Gleb.
Thank you, Anur.
Yes, you're unmuted.
And thanks a lot, Sophie. Very, very powerful story, and brings back all the memories for me too. Even though we came from slightly different periods in Russia, and as Anur mentioned, I went through the perestroika, right, which is the collapse of the Soviet Union and the development of the Wild West type of a scenario.
I'm so sorry for interrupting you, Gleb.
Sure.
Idan, I made you the host of the event as a mistake. I was trying to make you co-host. I made you the host. Can you please give me back the host, so I can spotlight Gleb? Also, the other co-hosts, can you please spotlight Gleb's video feed instead of Sophie? I'm sorry, I just lost my control for a sec.
How do I switch it back to you?
Thank you.
Owner, how do I switch it back to you?
Idan, you just need to.
I think I've done it. I can probably do it.
Okay, you did it. Okay, thank you. You can just make me a co-host. That's all right. Thank you.
No, I can't. Nope. Sorry. I don't know who's the host.
Eden can. Anyway, we can continue. I will write Eden in the chat window. Thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption, Gleb. Please continue.
Oh, no, it's okay. Not a problem at
Now
all.
everybody can see you.
All right. Is everything okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Right. So yes, I do like to share my personal story here as well. But I thought everybody would be just bored to death just to listen to my personal life. So the way I wanted to approach that was to maybe draw some parallels and use some personal examples too, in between the dogmas that I experienced growing up in the Soviet Union and the dogmas of the religion. So my primary thesis is that, well, all dogmas are bad, and whether it's an ideological platform or it's a religious platform, these are just expressions or manifestations of some of the dogmatic thinking. And it's as I was kind of digging into the subject, I find a lot of interesting similarities between, let's say, what my experience of indoctrination in the Soviet Union was, and how I I see the like similar developments within Christianity or Islam or any type of religions. Um, so let me maybe go through a couple of those things, and hopefully it won't take too much time. Uh, so the first thing is, and Sophie already touched on that, is the isolation or ignorance, right? So when the primary technique used in indoctrination is to isolate a person from the environment outside of that doctrine. This is what we experienced in growing up in the Soviet Union, and I'll just touch base maybe on a couple of things and how I felt about them. Is as I was in my school years, like for example, I remember this clearly that well, obviously in Soviet Union, we only had one party. It was a communist party, and it really never dawned on me as the why only one party and what's the purpose of the party. It's just the way it was, right? That's how I felt it, and it was completely normal. Living in a society that had a government and a party, and they were kind of all together. It's like there's a party, there's a government, but they're all the same, right? So the way it felt was completely normal. And so I might also say that if well, living with a dogma feels exactly like living without a dogma. So if any of you listening think that you might not have some kind of a dogma planted in your head, you're probably wrong. And I'm probably wrong about myself too. So I'm still probably holding on to some of that. I just don't know that. So one party, uh, that's one thing. Lenin is always right. That was something very, very unquestionable, right? So you kind of grow with this idea that there's that uh, there's the great being that knows everything and has answers for everything and has written some books, and what's written in those books is right, and you cannot question that. Why you can question that? Well, simply because you can't, right? And that is again planted in your brain, and I was only able to grow out of this type of thinking when things around me began to change, and that was in early 90s, right? When the Soviet Union began to collapse, and all those new thinking was leaking through, and I was exposed to different ways of looking at things, and at least I started to understand what it means to have a party in the country and why it's a good thing to have more than one. Um, Another interesting feature is that I think it's commonly shared among dogmas. So let's say religious and political, ideological dogmas is the presence of the antagonist. A powerful antagonist, devil in Christianity, for example, and what was in Soviet Union in that place is the rotten West or capitalism, right? It's always been presented to us in a very negative light. So the rotten West or the capitalism is always after you, is always after your soul. Um, it's it has all those goodies to lure you into giving up your right or true um, stance and give up your communistic mm, thinking in a way. So it has all those goodies. It has interesting maybe movies, good food, good things, the stuff that we would accidentally have a glimpse at, but they would always be presented to us as something that would rotten your soul, type of, metaphorically speaking, of course. So, which I find very, very similar to the representation of a devil and its temptations. Uh, the repetition and reinforcement. throughout my school years, my student years, we would always constantly have those political meetings during which we would be explained what the direction of the party is, where are we moving, and why the party is right, and how to react to this or that situation. And that we would go through a continuous cycles of repeating those things, or those things would be repeated to us. And there was a special role of activists or party leaders that would be implanted in every school and every organization, uh, to monitor and deliver the message in masses as to how to think and what the political interests should be. And if you don't have any political interests, they will advise you to have some. So those political activists were everywhere. And again, I didn't really question why they were there. Never really thought about of their usefulness or uselessness or harm, but they were there anyways. Um, so that's another aspect and similarity. So I can draw the parallels with maybe with priests and continuous prayers that are happening to maintain and do the upkeep of the religious dogma. Um, it's something that is very, very um, commonplace, or it's a technique, right? So the repetition and reinforcement to keep up the dogma operational. Uh, this the us versus them uh, type of attitude, right? So it's in group, out group mentality. It's always been part of the Marxism, Leninism, obviously, the classes, the proletariat versus bourgeois. If you are with the proletariat, if you are with the Communist Party, you're good. If you are not with us, that means you're against us. Obviously, it's very commonplace in religious circles. So you are part of the religious circle, or you are outside of the religious circle. If you are in, you're in. You're a friend. If you're out, um, depending on how strong the group is, you might be considered an enemy, and maybe a lethal enemy too. Uh, Maybe I should touch on apologetics, and Sophie mentioned that already. It's part of the isolation, but whatever makes it in, let's say certain books that you read, or certain books you must read, and they will have to be interpreted for you and explained how to understand them. The history gets rewritten to paint the historical event in favor of the Communist Party, or in the religious circles, the history will be painted maybe in a certain way to I don't know, to have a picture of Jesus or any other hero in a very, very favorable light. Uh, so and the last thing that I wanted to mention, the last thing, it's kind of funny. I don't understand where it's coming from, but um, growing up in the Soviet Union, there was there was a strict ban almost like on sex, or on any type of erotic visuals or books. So it's like that was a very similar to, like, say, Christian obsession with no sex, or the sex is dirty or something like that. And I have no idea where it's coming from, what role it serves. Maybe Sophie can explain, or someone. But I find it funny that dogmas, for some reason, they're so against sex. I'm not sure why what routes it's taking. So yeah, that's pretty much my points, right? I'm just trying to draw the parallels in between the dogmas of different sorts, in between religion and ideology, and specifically the communist ideology I was exposed to in the Soviet Union, and how it felt to me when I was young. Obviously, when the situation changed in the Soviet Union, and Soviet Union was no longer Soviet Union. I mean, my way of thinking about things changed drastically because I was relatively young at the time. It didn't really stick with me for a very long time. I was able to uh, sort of recover quickly, if you will. But I know of very, very many people who lived with this dogma for a while. And let's say my mom, she still thinks that Gorbachev destroyed the country and we were living a good life. And they had some savings. I mean, my father was a military pilot, and he made a lot of money, even though at the time it didn't really matter. But when it was when it did matter, they had some good savings. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, all those savings were gone. Money were devalued, and we were back. My parents were back into poverty, basically. So that was a bit of a difficult time. I was, as I said, I was able to grow out of that pretty quickly. Moved to Canada in 2000. Uh, but for people who grew with this dogma for a very long time into the later age, that was much more difficult to do. And I know that people were crying when Stalin died. Lots of people were thinking of him as a big father for the nation. I wasn't there, but I think it's pretty true history. Uh, yeah, so that's my story. I guess it's not very structured, but um, I- let's open up for questions, I guess.
Thank you. And this um, brings us to the end of our event. And I would like to thank everybody for their time. And thank you, Sophie and Gleb, for an enlightening and entertaining presentation. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are Canada's only national nonprofit for science and free thought. We hope that those of you who are not already members will consider purchasing a membership. We will include a link to our membership page in the chat window and through Meetup. I hope that you will consider joining. Not only does your membership provide financial support to CFIC, it also adds your voice to that of others who support science, critical thinking, and secularism. As we grow in numbers, so does our influence with government decision makers and public opinion that guides them. We advocate for evidence-based decisions on government policy, healthcare, public education, and human rights. If concerns like climate change, blasphemy laws, education curriculum, medical pseudoscience are important to you, please become a CFIC member. In today's landscape, there are too many people spreading misinformation and trying to mislead you. Without us, the major influencers will continue to be the large self-interested groups and institutions that benefit from making baseless claims and spreading pseudoscientific nonsense. So please consider membership. It's only $30 per year.